Well, hello everybody. Pastor Randy here. Welcome to Making It Simple. Beautiful Tuesday. Hope you're well today. We're going to jump back into the lesson. So we've been looking at picking the vine. The fruit of the Spirit is meekness. Now, we don't use that word a lot. It's just not a common part of our speech. But when we begin to understand the power of this one word, obviously, again, the rhyming nature of things, we tend to think of meek and weak being the same thing. Two completely different things. So we've been looking at the meek learner, the one that is humble, the one that is willing to learn. I want us to move that over to the meek leader. So as we concluded yesterday, I said, when we take a stand for God, and when I say that, again, I'm not talking about burying your feet in the sand, digging your heels in, and got your fists raised up and are ugly and nasty. No. That sometimes is the picture that is painted when someone says, I'm taking a stand for something. But that's really not what that means. Taking a stand means, I know this is right. And I'm not going to compromise that. It may cost me something. Friends, positions, whatever. Because I know this is right. I know that this is what God has called me to do, or I know that this is the position that is clear through Scripture. That's why I get a little sideways sometimes about things that are being taught out there. I know that comes out sometimes in my teachings, because I'm very passionate about the simplicity of the beauty of Scripture. Because what Jesus taught, what God has given us to learn, it's not difficult. It's not. And for those who teach that it is, for those who try to complicate it with a lot of, gobbledygook, it's very frustrating. But when we take a stand for God, it's all or none. There's no middle ground. When we move that into the position of being a leader, okay, what comes to mind when we think of leadership? Strength, administration, all the different things, respect. We can think of a lot of different words. But meekness is usually not one of them. But let's turn to the Bible. Let's look at Numbers chapter 1 and verse 23, speaking of Moses. Okay, Moses, a leader of people. Moses, it says, the man was very meek above all the men which were upon the face of the earth. In other words, as God looked upon Moses, he said, that's my guy. That's the guy that is not full of himself or anything else. He's one that is willing to learn. He is one that is willing to listen. And he is one that is moldable. He is one that is not filled with pride. In fact, Moses didn't believe in himself at all. He had some real anxiousness, if you will, about his own abilities. No self-confidence at all. I know how that feels, because that is a real struggle. Here we read that he was meek among all those that were upon the earth. Again, if we don't understand the word, if we don't grasp the meaning of that, it could be seen the wrong way. And Moses could be seen as kind of a weak or wimpy one, but that is not what we see here. He was humble before God, and fully admitting that he was not capable on his own of doing what God was calling him to do. Does that sound like the quality of a good leader? The one that is saying, I'll go as you say go, Lord, but I can't do it by myself. I need you. We don't see that. It's very, very rare in today's world because of pride. And so here we see Moses admitting he was not capable on his own. But with God, as we learn in the New Testament that all things are possible with God. With God, we see Moses as one who faced Pharaoh. We see Moses as one who led the people to freedom. We see Moses as one with faith in action. We see Moses as one who raised his staff at the Red Sea and they walked across on dry land. Some people miss that, okay? It was not mud and muck and mire. It was dry land that they walked across. Awesome scene in our mind if we can picture that. Meekness is a phenomenal quality in a leader. Again, in today's world, we oftentimes confuse the meaning of stuff because everything's been redefined. And again, I don't say that to question our intelligence or our being incapable of understanding something, but simply for the fact that what was red yesterday is blue tomorrow, and we're like, what the heck is going on? Everything is upside down. And sometimes the choices that we're given as answers, we really have to do some study as to which one is right. This is why as leaders, as teachers, as pastors, as mayors and governors and presidents and whatever it is, the position that we're elevated to, moms and dads, that's the greatest title ever. We need to understand that we need God. That's what this whole section is about. Being meek is saying, I can't do this, but with Him, there's nothing I can't do. Humility, and we're gonna stop the lesson with this section that we're getting ready to go into. Humility, it is more impressive than credentials. Now, why do I say that? See, friends, I've known people in my life that you couldn't even see the walls in their offices because of all the accolades and degrees. Okay? Again, and I speak nothing against education or achievement in that status. Again, I've got some myself. But I've seen a lot of people, again, it's almost like wallpaper. You can't even see the walls in their office because of all the degrees and the accolades and I've done this and I've accomplished that. But when you sit down to talk to them, I didn't have enough sense to get out of the rain when it came down to just dealing with everyday life. Humility says, I don't know it all. But what I do know, what I have been blessed to learn, I'm grateful. I'm very, very grateful. And for the things that I don't know, I'm willing to ask. I'm not going to be prideful and arrogant and not admit that I don't know. See, that is a mark of a great leader when one has humility. And this absolutely holds true in the world, in every office, in every position. And it very much holds so true in the church. And anyone sitting in my position that says, I know everything, is not being honest. Anyone saying they've got it all figured out, they are not being honest. Because, friends, that takes not only time, but it takes that personal walk with God. Because, again, everyone knows, or if you're just following what I do, you will get to know the whole entire core, the whole centrality of my ministry is relationship. Because if we do not have a personal relationship with God, we will not get to know the things of God. Because we then merely base it on surface level, what I've read, what I've heard. But if you don't know that what you're hearing is not matching up with what you read, and you don't know how to put those two things together, and that is not a statement of ignorance. That is, I don't know because I don't know Him. That's why Jesus rebuked the Pharisees. He said, you're teaching this and you're doing that, but you don't know God. And there's a massive difference in knowledge and intellect. And I know all the words, and I can tell you where this word came from, and I can tell you what this word means, and I know who wrote this and that. That's fine. That's great. But it's like I tell people, it's one thing to read the Bible. It's another thing to know the author. It changes everything when we know God personally. Submission to God, obedience to God is number one. It has to be. It is the most important because it removes me. It removes the flesh. It removes ego. It removes pride. And it gives the ability to God to say, mold me and shape me into who you need me to be so that I do it right. When Solomon was given the opportunity to say, this is what I want. He said, tell me what you want. He could have asked for this and that. But he said, I want wisdom. That is humility. That is what we want in a leader. Meek leader. Sounds like a strange concept. When we understand what it means, it absolutely clears the playing field and puts us in a whole different thought process. God bless you, friends. Lord willing, we'll be back tomorrow with another part of meek. How does it change things? We'll see you then.